In life, not all dangers are seen with the eyes. Some live in the shadows of the night. Before I tell you this ancient tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button, so you never miss the wisdom in our stories. Deep in the heart of Africa, where the great forests meet the flowing rivers, there lived a village called Umudike. The name means strong community in the old tongue. Here, the baobab trees stood like giants watching over mud huts with thatched roofs. Smoke rose from cooking fires as women prepared evening meals. The village had one rule above all others. When the sun sets and darkness covers the land, pregnant women must never leave their homes. Never. Elder Obianuju, the oldest woman in Umudike, would sit by her door each evening. Her voice carried across the village square like the sound of ancient drums. "Listen well, daughters of this land," she would call out. "The night is a friend to the spirits, not to humans. When you carry a child in your womb, the spirits hunger for new life. They wait in the darkness. They wait and they watch." The women would nod and gather their children close. They knew the stories. They had heard the warnings passed down from grandmother to mother to daughter for countless years. But one woman in the village would soon forget this ancient wisdom. Her name was Adamma, and she was heavy with her first child. Adamma was known throughout Umudike for her gentle heart and kind spirit. Her laugh was like music, and her smile could brighten even the cloudiest day. She helped other women with their cooking, played with the village children, and always shared her food with those who had less. Her husband Emeka loved her more than life itself. He was a strong man who worked hard in the yam fields. His hands were rough from farming, but they were always gentle when he touched his wife's growing belly. "Our child will be strong like the mighty Iroko tree," Emeka would whisper to Adamma each night. "And wise like the owl," Adamma would reply, placing her hands over his. As Adamma's belly grew rounder with each passing moon, strange cravings began to fill her mind. Sometimes she wanted bitter leaf soup at midnight. Other times she craved palm fruits that only grew by the river. These desires came strongest when the moon was full and bright. Emeka noticed his wife's restlessness. "My love, you pace the hut like a caged leopard. What troubles you?" Adamma would shake her head. "Nothing, my husband. Just the baby moving inside me." But it was more than that. Deep in her heart, she felt pulled toward the night. The darkness seemed to call her name in whispers only she could hear. During the day, Umudike was alive with sounds and movement. Women gathered at the village well, balancing clay pots on their heads. Their voices rose and fell as they shared news and gossip. "Did you hear? The yam harvest will be good this season," one would say. "Yes, and the rains came at just the right time," another would reply. Children ran between the huts, playing games and chasing chickens. Their laughter mixed with the sounds of woodpeckers and chattering monkeys from the nearby forest. The men worked in the fields or carved tools from wood. In the evenings, they would sit under the great baobab tree, sharing stories and planning for tomorrow's work. But when the sun began to set, everything changed. Mothers called their children inside. Cooking fires were banked low. Doors were closed and latched tight. Elder Obianuju would begin her nightly ritual. She walked the village paths, checking that all was well. In one hand she carried a burning torch. In the other, she held a staff topped with cowrie shells that clicked softly as she moved. "The night spirits are waking," she would chant. "Guard your homes. Protect your families. Keep the pregnant women safe from harm." And the people would respond, "Yes indeed, Elder. We hear and we obey." As the weeks passed, Adamma's cravings grew stronger. The baby inside her seemed to demand things that could only be found in the darkness. She began to dream of cool river water and sweet herbs that grew wild near the forest edge. One evening, as Emeka prepared their dinner, Adamma felt a powerful urge. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, and suddenly she could think of nothing but the medicinal herbs that grew by the riverbank. "Emeka," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "I need some of the healing herbs from the river. The ones that help with pregnancy sickness." Her husband looked up from the fire. "But my love, it is almost dark. I will get them for you tomorrow at first light." "The craving is so strong," Adamma whispered. "The baby will not let me rest without them." Emeka's eyes filled with worry. He had heard the elder's warnings many times. But he also saw his wife's discomfort. "Then I will go myself," he said firmly. "You must stay here where it is safe." Adamma nodded, but inside, the craving burned like fire. As her husband stepped out into the evening air, she pressed her hands against her belly and tried to think of other things. But the baby kicked harder, and the desire for the night herbs grew impossible to ignore. The hut felt small and stuffy as Adamma waited for Emeka's return. She paced from wall to wall, her hands pressed against her lower back. The baby moved restlessly inside her, as if it too felt confined. Through the window, she could see the full moon rising above the trees. Its silver light made the village look magical and mysterious. The river sparkled in the distance like a ribbon of stars. "Just a quick trip," she whispered to herself. "I know exactly where the herbs grow. I can be there and back before Emeka returns." Elder Obianuju's warnings echoed in her mind, the night is a friend to the spirits, not to humans. But the craving was so strong it made her stomach ache. The baby seemed to be reaching toward the moonlight, pulling her forward with invisible hands. Adamma wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and placed her hand on the door latch. She paused, remembering all the stories she had heard since childhood. Stories of pregnant women who ventured out at night and were never seen again. Stories of spirits that stole unborn children. But surely those were just old tales meant to frighten people. She was a strong woman. She knew these paths better than anyone. What harm could there be in gathering a few herbs? The door opened with a soft creak, and moonlight spilled across her feet. The night air was cool against Adamma's skin as she stepped outside. The village was silent except for the distant sound of night birds and the whisper of wind through palm leaves. She moved carefully along the path, one hand supporting her belly and the other reaching out for balance. The moonlight made everything look different. Familiar huts appeared strange and ghostly. Shadows seemed to move and dance where none should be. As she walked toward the river, Adamma heard Elder Obianuju's voice in her memory, "When you carry a child in your womb, the spirits hunger for new life." A chill ran down her spine, but she pushed the fear away. These were just old superstitions. She was a modern woman who could think for herself. The path to the river wound through a grove of palm trees. During the day, it was a beautiful walk filled with bird songs and dappled sunlight. But now, in the darkness, the trees seemed to lean in closer. Their leaves rustled with sounds that might have been wind or might have been whispers. Adamma's steps grew slower. The baby inside her had stopped moving, as if it too sensed something wrong. But she had come too far to turn back now. The herbs were just ahead, growing wild along the riverbank where the soil was rich and damp. She would gather them quickly and return home before anyone noticed she was gone. The river appeared before Adamma like a silver snake winding through the darkness. Moonlight danced on the water's surface, creating patterns that seemed almost alive. The sound of flowing water mixed with night insects and the distant call of an owl. Along the banks, she could see the herbs she needed. Their leaves glowed pale green in the moonlight, exactly as she remembered. But something felt different here by the river. The air was thick and heavy, filled with strange scents she couldn't identify. As Adamma knelt to gather the herbs, she heard a soft splashing sound. She looked up, expecting to see a fish jumping or perhaps a water bird. Instead, she saw ripples spreading across the water's surface in perfect circles, as if something large had just sunk beneath. "Just a crocodile," she whispered to herself, though her voice shook slightly. But crocodiles didn't make ripples like that. And the water was getting stranger. The moonlight on its surface began to swirl and twist, forming shapes that looked almost like faces. Faced with glowing eyes and mouths that moved as if speaking words she couldn't hear. Adamma's hands trembled as she picked the herbs. The baby inside her began to kick frantically, as if trying to warn her of danger. Each kick felt like a tiny fist beating against her ribs, urging her to run. That's when she heard the whispers. The whispers started so softly that Adamma thought they might be the wind moving through reeds. But as she listened more carefully, she realized they were voices. Many voices, speaking in the old language that only the elders still remembered. "Come closer, daughter of the day," the voices seemed to say. "Come closer to the water where all life begins." Adamma's heart began to beat faster. She clutched the herbs against her chest and tried to stand, but her legs felt weak and shaky. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. "We see the life you carry," they continued. "Such a precious gift. Such a rare treasure. Come closer and let us bless your child." The water began to glow with an eerie blue light that had nothing to do with the moon. Shapes moved beneath the surface, shapes that looked like reaching hands and floating hair. The faces in the water became clearer, and Adamma could see that they were beautiful and terrible at the same time. "Don't listen to them," she whispered to her unborn child. "Don't listen to their lies." But the voices were so sweet, so convincing. They promised her everything she had ever wanted. A healthy baby. An easy birth. Wisdom and beauty for her child that would last a lifetime. All she had to do was step into the water. Adamma took one step forward, then another. The river seemed to pull at her feet like quicksand. Each step brought her closer to the glowing water and the reaching hands beneath its surface. As Adamma moved closer to the water's edge, the night spirits began to show their true forms. They rose from the river like mist-given shape, beautiful and terrifying creatures with eyes like stars and voices like singing birds. "Welcome, sister," they called to her. "Welcome to our realm where the living and the unborn dance together." Some of the spirits appeared as lovely women with flowing hair and graceful movements. Others looked like children who laughed and played in the moonlight. But their eyes held an ancient hunger that made Adamma's blood run cold. "Your child will be special," they promised. "Born of two worlds, blessed by both earth and water. Give the baby to us, and we will make it immortal." Adamma shook her head, trying to clear the confusion from her mind. "No, I will not give you my child. This baby belongs to me and my husband." The spirits laughed, and their laughter sounded like breaking glass. "Foolish woman, you came to us willingly. You stepped into our domain when the wise ones warned you to stay away. Now the child belongs to us." The water around Adamma's feet began to glow brighter. She felt it tugging at her, trying to pull her deeper into the river. The spirits circled around her like dancers, their movements hypnotic and strange. "Join us," they sang. "Become one with the night. Your child will never know hunger or pain or death." Is that not what every mother wants? For a moment, their words seemed to make sense. Wouldn't it be wonderful if her baby never had to suffer? Never had to face the hardships of human life? But then she remembered Emeka's gentle hands on her belly. She remembered the village women singing lullabies to their children. She remembered the joy in a mother's eyes when her baby spoke its first word. "No," she cried out. "My child belongs in the world of the living." The spirits' beautiful faces twisted with anger when Adamma refused their offer. The lovely women became hags with sharp teeth and claws. The laughing children turned into creatures with hollow eyes and mouths full of darkness. "You cannot refuse us," they hissed. "You came to our river. You walked in our moonlight. Now you are ours to keep." The water around Adamma's ankles began to feel thick and sticky, like mud. She tried to step backward, but her feet wouldn't move. The spirits had trapped her with their magic, and she was sinking slowly into the riverbank. "Help," she called out, but her voice seemed small and weak in the vast darkness. The village was far away, and everyone was safely locked inside their homes. The spirits danced around her, chanting in their ancient language. With each word they spoke, Adamma felt herself sinking deeper. The water reached her knees, then her thighs. Soon it would touch her belly where her precious baby grew. "Please," she begged. "I have learned my lesson. I will never ignore the elders' warnings again. Just let me return to my family." But the spirits only laughed. "Too late for begging, foolish woman. You should have listened when you had the chance." Adamma closed her eyes and tried to think of ways to escape. She remembered Elder Obianuju's stories about the night spirits. They were powerful, but they feared certain things. Fire. The sound of drums. The voices of the whole community raised together in prayer. If only someone would come looking for her. If only Emeka would return and find her missing. But would anyone be brave enough to venture into the darkness to save her? Back in the village, Emeka returned to his hut carrying a bundle of herbs. He had traveled to 3 different places to find exactly what Adamma needed. His heart was light, thinking of how grateful his wife would be. "Adamma, my love," he called as he pushed open the door. "I have the herbs you wanted." But the hut was empty. Cold. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, and there was no sign of his wife anywhere. Emeka's blood turned to ice in his veins. He searched every corner of the small space, calling her name. He looked behind the hut, thinking she might have stepped outside for fresh air. But Adamma was nowhere to be found. Panic filled his chest like a living thing. He ran to the nearest neighbor's hut and pounded on the door. "Brother Emeka. Have you seen my wife?" Emeka opened the door, his face creased with sleep. "Emeka. What troubles you at this hour?" "Adamma is gone. I left to gather herbs, and when I returned, she had disappeared." Word spread quickly through the village. Doors opened and people emerged carrying torches and oil lamps. The men gathered in the village square while the women consoled each other with worried whispers. Elder Obianuju appeared among them, her face grave and knowing. She carried her staff with the cowrie shells and wore a special wrap reserved for the most serious occasions. "When did you last see her?" the elder asked Emeka. "Just after sunset. She wanted healing herbs from the river. I told her I would get them, but she seemed so restless, so troubled by cravings." Elder Obianuju nodded slowly. "The spirits call strongest to women heavy with children. They hunger for new life, and they know how to whisper into a mother's heart." Elder Obianuju took charge of the search party. She divided the villagers into groups and gave each group specific instructions. "Remember," she told them, "we are not just looking for a lost woman. We are facing the night spirits themselves. Stay together. Carry fire. Sing the old songs that drive away evil." The men formed the largest group, carrying spears and machetes along with their torches. The women followed behind, chanting protective prayers and beating small drums. Even the older children joined in, their young voices adding strength to the ancient words. Emeka led them toward the river, his heart pounding with fear and desperate hope. As they walked, Elder Obianuju taught them the special chants used against the night spirits. "Spirits of darkness, we banish you," they called out together. "Children of shadow, we send you away. By fire and drum and human voice, we claim this night for the living." The forest seemed to close in around them as they moved along the path. Their torches cast dancing shadows that played tricks on the eyes. But they pressed forward, their voices growing stronger with each step. As they neared the river, they began to hear strange sounds. Whispers in the old language. Laughter that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The sound of water moving in ways that water should not move. "She is here," Elder Obianuju said, her voice firm and certain. "The spirits have her, but she still lives. I can feel her heartbeat like a drum in the darkness." The villagers emerged from the forest to find a sight that would haunt their memories forever. The river glowed with unnatural blue light, and shapes danced on its surface like living shadows. In the center of it all stood Adamma, trapped waist-deep in the glowing water. Around her circled the night spirits in all their terrible beauty. Some appeared as lovely women with flowing hair. Others took the form of children who laughed and played with water that moved like liquid starlight. But their eyes held an ancient hunger that spoke of countless souls stolen in the darkness. Adamma! Emeka cried out, starting to run toward the water. Elder Obianuju caught his arm with surprising strength. Wait, she commanded. You cannot fight them with anger alone. We must use the old ways. The spirits turned toward the villagers with expressions of fury and contempt. They had been interrupted in their feeding, and they were not pleased. Leave this place, children of the day, they hissed. The woman came to us willingly. She is ours now. But Elder Obianuju stepped forward, her staff raised high. The cowrie shells caught the torchlight and seemed to glow with power of their own. By the authority of the ancestors, she declared, by the power of the living community, we challenge your claim. The spirits shrieked and recoiled as if her words had struck them like physical blows. But they did not flee. Instead, they began to chant in their own ancient language, calling on powers older than human memory. What followed was a battle unlike any the villagers had ever seen. It was not fought with spears or arrows, but with voices and faith and the unbreakable bonds of human community. Elder Obianuju led the chanting, her voice rising above all others like a bird soaring toward the stars. The men beat their drums in rhythms passed down from their great-grandfathers. The women sang lullabies and work songs and prayers for the protection of mothers and children. The spirits fought back with their own dark magic. They made the torches flicker and dim. They sent cold winds that tried to scatter the villagers. They whispered doubts and fears into. And they would not be turned away. Slowly, very slowly, the spirits began to lose their power over Adamma. The glowing water around her legs became ordinary river water. The beautiful faces twisted with rage as their magic weakened. You cannot have her. Emeka shouted, his voice full of love and determination. She carries my child, the future of our village. She is our daughter, our sister, the women chanted. We claim her with bonds of blood and friendship. And Adamma herself, hearing the voices of her people calling her name, began to fight back. She remembered who she was and where she belonged. Not in the cold realm of the spirits, but in the warm world of the living. With a final surge of community power, the villagers broke the spirits' hold on Adamma. The night creatures shrieked and dissolved into mist, retreating to the deeper parts of the river where human voices could not reach them. Emeka splashed into the water and gathered his wife into his arms. She was cold and shaking, but alive. The baby inside her kicked strongly, as if celebrating its victory over the forces of darkness. My love, Emeka whispered, I thought I had lost you forever. I was foolish, Adamma sobbed against his shoulder. I ignored the warnings. I thought I knew better than the elders. Elder Obianuju waded into the shallows and placed her wrinkled hand on Adamma's belly. She closed her eyes and listened with senses older than sight. The child is well, she announced. The spirits touched neither mother nor baby. The community's love protected them both. The villagers cheered and began the journey home, their torches lighting the way through the darkness. They sang songs of victory and thanksgiving, their voices echoing through the forest. But Elder Obianuju walked beside Adamma in thoughtful silence. She knew that this night would become part of the village's history, another story to be told to future generations. As they reached the safety of Umudike, the first light of dawn began to touch the eastern sky. The night spirit's power was broken for now, but they would return. They always returned, waiting for the next pregnant woman who might forget the ancient wisdom. In the days that followed, Adamma became a changed woman. She helped Elder Obianuju teach the village children about the dangers of the night spirits. She shared her story with every pregnant woman in Umudike, making sure they understood the importance of the old warnings. I thought the stories were just superstition, she would tell them. I believed I was too smart, too modern to be fooled by ancient fears. But the spirits are real, and they hunger for the life we carry within us. When her baby was born, a healthy boy with bright eyes and a strong voice, Adamma named him Emeka, which means, God has done great things. The whole village celebrated, knowing that this child had been saved from the darkness before he was even born. As the years passed, Adamma's story became legend. Mothers would tell it to their daughters, and grandmothers would share it with their granddaughters. The warning remained the same: pregnant women must never venture out at night. Elder Obianuju, now even older but still wise, would end the story with these words. Tradition is the memory of a people. When we ignore it, we walk into the arms of danger. This is why pregnant women are told, never go out at night. The spirits wait in the darkness, and they are always hungry. And the people would respond, yes indeed, Elder. We hear and we remember. For in the village of Umudike, wisdom passed from one generation to the next like a sacred fire that must never be allowed to die. If you learned something from Adamma's story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, so the wisdom of Africa's folktales can continue to live on. The ancestors speak through these stories, and their voices must not be forgotten. Remember, some dangers hide in the shadows, waiting for those who think they know better than the wisdom of ages. Listen to your elders. Honor the traditions. And never underestimate the power of community to protect those we love. Until next time, may your days be filled with wisdom and your nights with peace.